So Solid Crew, they are here. This is their second single, first one to chart in the top 10 during our series. It's 21 seconds.
This is the second single from the debut album, They Don't Know, and it is actually the first of 5 top 20 singles they get, 4 of which we're going to cover
10, yeah.
in future. I love the story of this one, right? So whenever they were told by the record label that they've got to make a song that's 3.5 minutes, because that's what the average length for radio play was back then, they twigged that, right, if we can take 10 or 11 of our members, that divides down to 8 bars each at 140 BPM, so that ends up being 21 seconds for each rapper to have a go. And I had no idea that's what 21 seconds meant.
Yeah.
It just never twigged with me.
The Genius annotation says for the normal speed of a garage record, 21 seconds is 12 bars and 29 seconds is 16 bars, because there is somebody mentioned 29 seconds later on.
Right.
Theirs is 16 bars. So they had to fit a lot of people on, and that's how they done it. It's clever. I wondered for a long time why 21 seconds, but it does make sense. And it is clever.
I think it's really, really smart. I feel like there's something really odd about it at the same time. You know, like if you were sitting in a classroom trying to divide a cake, and you're like, well, how many people are there? So the cake goes around in a full circle. So Jane needs some cake. Barry needs some cake.
Asha D needs some cake.
Yeah. And they've done that whole thing through it. And I'm like, is it genius? Is it, because they literally got out a calculator at the time, and it's like I love that. I think that the fact they've come up with all of this is actually brilliant.
I used to sing this as a kid. Not the verses, but the hook was memorable, and I did. This was a popular song amongst my 5-year-old friends. It stuck with me ever since, and that's I guess interesting. I wouldn't really have thought of what garage was or what any of it really was, but it stayed with us.
I had a moment with this one where Kai, who's in the music video, right, who's the guy that does 21 seconds to go, he had these creepy blue contact lenses in that conflicted with his natural eye colour. And I remember that was like captivating when you were younger, like that's a little bit scary. And the whole video was moody, so there was like grey clouds rolling in and things like that, people caged and all of this. So that was quite creepy, but I remember watching this video so many times when I was younger. I fancied Lisa Mafia. But I remember then, when I was at high school, I remember one of my friends getting picked on by this dude, and I was a bit like, he's dodgy. Do I help in this fight, or do I just leave him? Because I was like, this guy that's beat them up, you don't want to get involved with, and then you don't want to be one of his future targets. And it's like, right, I'm gonna intervene. So I pulled him off. I was like, fuck off, get out.
Pulled him off.
It's like, pulled him off.
That'll diffuse things, I guess.
So that guy left. And then I remember he walked through these double doors out from underneath the stairwell, went and disappeared. And I could see him through these glass windows. He was coming back, and I knew that he was coming back for me. And I was like, you need to show him now that he's not to fuck with you. And as he was walking up to the door, I marched up to the door and I kicked it like Jerry kicked herself in the tits. And I smacked his face open with the door. And I remember he just lay there and just pointed at him and just walked off.
That's why you don't pick on people.
I was shitting myself, and I went and got my mate off the floor and was like, right, come on. So we went to the other side of the school and into the playground, and one of the maths teachers was there, and I was like, I've just kicked this guy up the face of the door and he's lying there. And my teacher just went, very good, on you go. Because he was a troublemaker. He disappeared then after that, because I think he actually ended up in like a young offenders or something.
Oh, right.
And then maybe actually about 4 or 5 years later, I was on a bus, waiting for a bus outside of the Roebuck in Limavady to go to Kelly's, the nightclub. We all waited on a Wednesday night for this bus to come, and you fought to get onto the bus. And then, you would get on the bus, you'd look out the window at the people who were still trying to get on that weren't going to make it. You were like, yeah, I got a seat, so what? But I remember he then got on the bus, he disappeared, hadn't seen him for ages, and he got onto this bus and he had them contact lenses in.
Ooh.
And he walked up to me in this bus, and again I thought to myself, shit, you have to show that you're hard, and I shit myself. And he come up to me in the bus and he put his forehead on my forehead and he pushed against me, and I was like, don't show fear. And I just like nudged him back, and he flinched. Ooh. And he went and sat down, but he had them contact lenses in. So the contact lenses from that have freaked me
traumatized
from that point, because this guy, he's in prison now and he gets out every so often. But I remember just thinking he remembers that moment that I kicked him up the face with the door and busted his face open and just left him there, which was not good.
I wonder if he still would.
He's got a lovely family as well, so whenever I go back, I know family members too, and they're like, oh, you're that kid who kicked us in the face. There's a good chance that then after that on the bus that he did kind of chat to us, you know what I mean? But
I thought you might like do the whole thing of like pressing his head against you and then go, all right, mate. But was he being sincere? He was
trying to instill fear into me, and I was like, I was shitting myself, but I was like, don't let him see the fear.
Well done, you.
And he's very unlikely to be listening now. But
you never know. It's reached weirder places.
Yeah, I don't think the person would they be able to figure out who they were? Nobody else would be able to identify him. It's fine. Apart from me as a boy.
still lingers in your brain.
Yes, it does. I loved the music video to this. I thought it was really good, and it started with a little kid who was 4 years old going, ha ha ha, what you laughing at? Which turns out it was Lisa Mafia's kid.
Yeah, Chelsea.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was proper buzzed, which who would have been the same age as you.
Yeah, we realised before that I was 5, she'd have been 4. She'd be my age now. I'd quite fancy a chat with her. What's it like being Lisa Mafia's Bane? Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about what it reminded me of, and it just in terms of those tracks that have multiple people jumping on, and we had D12 recently, and I think they're a mixed bag. We've got MOP coming up who have a similar sort of thing. It reminded me of Blackout Crew, Put a Donk on It, which is like, I guess, like my generation of all like Bluetooth songs and stuff, like this So Solid Crew, that's like that generation's Blackout Crew, Put a Donk on It.
Absolutely, and I remember people being really judgmental of Put a Donk on It.
Yeah.
And it's because they were Northern, whereas there was so much more credibility for people that came... Where were Blackout... They were from Wigan? South London. Blacklight... Or not Blackout.
Oh, So Solid.
So Solid. I can't remember what region of London. They were South anyway, because they were today. But remember Blackout Crew, because they were Northern and because they were chavvy, just being scrutinised. And then I saw them on the Culture Show. And the Culture Show did a full thing on them, and I was like, fucking get in. That's good. Go for it. The video for this one, for So Solid, was about 5 minutes long. I used to just sit and watch it. It was interesting, dark and stormy. There was fans leaning against some fence. It was moody. They all kind of come and do their thing. Lisa Mafia was the one that always got the cheer. And I remember it being on Top of the Pops as well. And it sounded very live on Top of the Pops, so it did sound different.
Yeah.
But equally gripping. But this is a great example of how to be a squad.
Yeah, and they all stick up for each other. There is mention in the lyrics of like, don't snitch on each other, we're a family, we're here to stay sort of thing. And I guess they're on the defensive because for their entire career, like even to this day, they've always been on the defensive because of constant media scrutiny. When you see a gang like this or a crew, and they've even changed the name now, they're just called So Solid because of the implications of crew.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and I think this track is them kind of sticking up for themselves because of things that they had done, actual crimes, some of them have been in prison, but things they hadn't done too. I think there's an implication if you're a crew like that you're going to lead people to commit crimes. Like drill music these days, it gets a bad rap. So fair play, because they get to boast a little bit about what they've achieved, and they get to put a flag down and say, look, we're not going anywhere, so you can just ignore us, or you can get on board. But otherwise, fuck off.
I do feel like this is very British.
It's very British.
I mean? Whenever we start looking at D12s and MOPs and stuff, and I'm a bit like, oh, for God's sake, really?
Yeah.
But whenever you look at the So Solid thing, you can tell that I've kind of been brought up in that kind of mind frame compared to the American side of it, because with American I have to always go open mind. Is it supposed to be funny? What's the crack? And I think it's because Eminem used it's supposed to be funny as excuse for everything.
Yeah.
Whenever I was growing up, I have to open it. Whereas with this one, I think this feels like it comes from somewhere real that isn't self-inflicted.
Yeah.
And actually, this is more about different cultures within London and the way that they've really lived their lives. Whereas sometimes in some of the American hip hop and rap, it's like you're bored and you're doing this because you're bored, not because you have a political attachment to something. You're bored and want attention. But yeah, I really like this one.
Big deal. Big deal.